Today on Tricro Studios, I just bought this Gibson Flying V Melody Maker. We're going to find out if it's any good. Very quickly, in this video, I am going to go over things like the specs. There's going to be 3 different sound samples, one of which is a direct comparison between two other Gibson Flying Vs. And I'm going to do a visual comparison between the other Flying Vs as well. We're going to see what's under the pickguard, and we're going to talk about like my overall reactions. And when I bought this, I thought this was going to be a toy, but a lot of you are here just to hear what it sounds like with some metal. So here we go. I always hold Flying Vs weird in videos. I don't know why. Just get used to that. I'm sorry, I'm an idiot. But let's talk about the specs really quickly, and then we're going to see what's under this pickguard. See if you can actually add a neck pickup or a tone pot. So the specs are as follows. It's very, very easy. Instead of a mahogany body, we have a maple body. We still retain the mahogany neck. We have a roasted or baked, I don't know what they wanted to call it at the time, maple fretboard. So this is not rosewood, even though it looks like rosewood. Even close up, it looks like rosewood. We have the compensated wraparound. So it's not the lightning bar. It doesn't have the little spots that are intonated or help with intonation. It also doesn't do that when you do big bends and stuff like that. You don't feel or hear that little plink, which doesn't show up in recordings, but you feel it, so it's a little off-putting. We have one pickup, which we'll talk about in a second, and a volume potentiometer. I did change the knob, and I added a pointer. It's kind of weird. We also have the smaller headstock, and then the bean style vintage tuners. The tuners here as well, they're not the vintage sized, which is great because if you want to add whatever tuners that you want, you can do so. It's the ones that thread and everything like that, so you don't have to buy the smaller size tuners. Whatever ones you want will do. So anyway, if you are curious if you can add a neck pickup or what it looks like under the pickguard, if you can add things, if you can do mods, here you go. Now, as far as upgrading this, you can get like different color pickguards and everything here. There are options to get shielding. This does not actually include any shielding. If you're looking to put a neck pickup in here, that's not really going to happen unless you can route out the cavity. And as well, it's a very, very, very tight squeeze in here. You can see that or not. So adding a tone pot, in order to do that without, again, more routing, you would be looking at maybe, I don't even know if you have enough room, enough clearance here. but you can get those dual toggle switches, or dual, potentiometers, where it's got a ring on the bottom and a ring on the top. But this also has an HB103 in here, which a lot of people call it a Seymour Duncan HB103. It is actually a Duncan designed HB103. So those pickups there, I think they're like Seymour Duncan, are made in the US. The Duncan designed or not. And these are the pickups that are found in like the older Jackson guitars, not the US made Jacksons, but like the Japanese and Indonesian and stuff like that. So the Duncan design pickups here, which to me is a little bit of a disappointment. They sound good, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it's something wrong with me, I would say. I like my Gibson guitars to have Gibson pickups in it, not even EMGs, but the Gibson pickups in it. But otherwise, you know, this is what you're looking at, and there are a lot of options for upgrading. Okay, so that should clear things up. If you want to add a neck pickup, yeah, you can do it, but guess what? I wouldn't do it myself. I would see if I could pay somebody, and even then, you're taking a lot of wood out, so you may find that it may take away from the guitar rather than add. Alright, so let's start comparing here between some Gibson Flying Vs. So this is a 2007 reissue of the Gibson Flying V98. If you put these together, as I'm an idiot and bounce them up together, it's hard to do, you gotta do it this way. But if I put them together and line them up, you can see that the wings on this guitar are just a little longer. But thickness is where we really have to look at things. So looking at thickness, the 98 Flying V is sitting at just shy of 1.5 inches, where the Flying V Melody Maker is sitting at 1.25 inches, just shy of it actually. Last thing we're going to look at here would be the headstocks. So this has the, I always refer to it as the 67 headstock, because I think there was, it's like the 50s, but there was also, I think they also used this one early on. Maybe it was just in some models. But you can see this is the kind of traditional Flying V headstock, which is much, much bigger than this tiny one here. Next up, we'll compare it to my Gibson Flying V Japan. Now, when I say Flying V Japan, there are people that are like, that's made in America, not in Japan. I've had people all caps me in comments. Basically, this was, there was no Flying V in 2015. There was no actual Flying V in 2015. And for the Japanese market, they wanted to have a Flying V. So they did a special run of these in a couple of colors. They're actually made in the custom shop, even though they're not really a custom shop guitar. But they were made in the custom shop, so you get a little bit of points for that. But this one is kind of 70s inspired. It's a Sunburst guitar. So when I say 70s inspired, it has a thinner body. It still retains the same V shape, so this one here is a little longer than this one. It's also thicker than this one. And when we take a look at the headstocks here, this is a smaller 70s style headstock, which a lot of people just don't understand. Most people do, but there's a lot of people out there that don't understand that this is different. It's a smaller headstock. Not as small as this one, but we're still talking about different headstock styles. Also has a volute on the back, a little bit of a here to reinforce the headstock. Flying V Japan is sitting at just over 1.25 inches. And again, the Melody Maker just shy of 1.25 inches. So now that we've done a visual comparison and looked at the sizes and everything, let's actually do an audio one, and we'll hear a sample that does a comparison with all three Flying Vs. They can't all be metal. So, a lot of people out there, this can be a great blues guitar. There's someone on YouTube, when I was looking at this guitar on YouTube, who has some great blues tones from this, and I highly recommend taking a look. I'm not going to do that exactly, so here's Not Metal. Alright, so I did want to leave you with my overall thoughts on this guitar. And I'm not going to lie to you, I bought this thinking that I would bring it home and think, you know what? It's a toy. It's a smaller size, it's thinner, and it only has the one pickup, and it's an HB103. It's a Duncan design. That's the Jackson pickups, basically. And I thought, because the other guitars that I have with the wraparounds, they feel a little different. But I always knew that the compensator was my favorite out of all of them, even the Tone Pros one with the adjustable saddle, or the adjustable, yeah. But the compensated ones feel a little better. But usually with those, I find that tension is an issue. They usually feel a little looser. So when I brought it home, I was still chuckling to myself when I brought it home, when I brought it out of the Flying V gig bag that comes with it, which is not as padded as the current ones, but still padded enough. I was still chuckling to myself because I thought it's going to be a toy. And I did buy it because with the idea of getting a white pickguard, an actual Gibson pickup, because I'm stupid, and trying to find one of the 2-screw Gibson truss rod covers in white, because I think this would look great black and white. But what I found the moment that I brought it home, this thing was overly comfortable to play. I'm one of those guys that finds it comfortable to sit and play a Flying V. I find, like, if I'm doing leads, I usually will do this, especially if I have a wah. And I find that it's a good balance. I have a lot of good access to the higher frets. But this particular one, I don't know if it's the smaller body. It's just a little more comfortable in between your legs in the classical position. But it did not feel weird. It did not feel off when I was palm muting. The only thing I find is this here, where you can raise your action. I noticed that on my palm, the bottom of my palm. I noticed that a little bit, but it doesn't feel off, and it's good tension. I have 10 to 46 strings on here, so the tension and everything is really good. And it feels like a Gibson Flying V. It doesn't feel like a toy. And instantly, when I started playing it through different amps and stuff like that, I just felt extremely happy that I purchased this. And I initially thought, because I paid $850 Canadian for this guitar, not from somebody. I bought it from a store, bought it from Stan Guitars. They have no idea who this channel is. They just know I come in and I buy gear probably like once a month. But I knew that they're a reputable dealer, I guess you would say. They don't buy junk and then sell junk. So I'm not going to go in and get a knurled up guitar that's all chunked up and everything unless they actually state, hey, this thing's really beat up. So I bought it as well because this is the first day off I've had in a while. So you can hear my voice kind of going. It's the first day off that I had in a while, and even though over the last 2 weeks I got the Fender Rarities Quilt Mapletop Stratocaster and the ENGL Fireball 100, I don't know, something about having a full day off to myself with nobody home. It felt a little like it felt right to get a new guitar so I can, I don't know, I'm weird. I enjoy setting up a new guitar to my liking and kind of discovering the ins and outs of it and everything. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. So that's not that much money. So I thought, I'll pick it up, and even if it is like a little bit of a toy, I'll still be able to have fun with it. It's a cheap guitar. Cheap guitars you can beat up and you don't feel bad, and sometimes you play a little dirtier. But if you find this used, which I used to, not anymore. I used to see them all the time for like $400 or $500. But if you see one of these and you're wondering if it's any good, I absolutely recommend this. Some of them will need a good setup, and getting used to the compensated wraparound isn't that hard, but you really do have to work with it to get it to the proper height that you want and kind of move things back and forth so it's close to properly intonated. But I highly recommend this guitar. I'm very, very happy and very, very proud that I own it. Thanks for watching.